Hello, my fellow creeps. Welcome to DadPooL's Discussions. I'm your host, the one and only DadPooL. Today is day 28 of DadPooLoWeen. And speaking of creeps, have I got a movie for you today? We're actually going to talk about the entire franchise, but mainly the first one. And judging by the avatar, yes, you've guessed it, we're talking about Creepshow. Creepshow is an anthology film that has several stories within the movie, all premised around a comic book. First came out in 1982, November 10th, 1982 to be exact, about 4 months after the movie we talked about yesterday, which was Poltergeist. Like I said in yesterday's video, 1982 was a really good year for not only movies, but for horror movies. So Creepshow is directed by George Romero, who has the moniker of, King of the Zombies, Zombie Master, Zombie Man. He's just a brilliant mind, brilliant director, knows how to utilize set pieces, props, lighting, camera, all that. He's a genius at that. And, we've thrown a lot of names, a lot of genius titles to a lot of the directors of movies that we've covered this month. But without George Romero, we don't have The Walking Dead. We don't have World War Z. We don't have 28 Days Later. We don't have any of the Dead series. This guy is a mastermind, and his films, his body of work, speaks for itself. This is written by Stephen King, based on stories by Stephen King, produced by Richard P. Rubenstein, who went on to do Tales from the Dark Side television series, which I'm going to plug Pluto until they're a sponsor. Pluto, Tales from the Dark Side is on there. It's also shows on Comet. He also did the series Monsters, which a lot of people just did not. I don't think they liked it too much, but I enjoy those late night. It was like a late night Saturday night type of show that came on. I think it was on like UPN or something like that back in the day, WIPX. I think it would come on like around 11, 12 at night. It was just an enjoyable series. So if you have a chance to check either one of those out, Tales from the Dark Side or Monsters, really, Richard Rubenstein is just amazing. So this particular film has five stories within the film. So we have Father's Day, we have The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrell, Something to Tide You Over, The Crate, and finally They're Creeping Up on You. So we're going to cover each of those 5 stories, go over the description of each story. There's also the story in the beginning with Billy and his father played by Tom Atkins, who you might recognize him from a lot of films. The Fog, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Just a great actor. Usually, roles with the same crew. So if you're going to see Tom Atkins, you're going to see, a Tom Savini. You're going to see a Romero. You're going to see a lot of those same people. Stephen King within some of the movies that he's in. So let's uh, let's start off with some numbers. So the budget for this film was about 8 million, and it brought in at the box office 21 million. It's about 2 hours long, but again, like other movies that I've talked about, this 2 hours, because it's broken up into different parts, really doesn't seem like a 2 hour movie. It does. There's no dragging. There's no lull. Uh, it's just action, story, action. It's just blends in, and it's a great 2 hour experience. So let's start off with the prologue, and then we'll touch on each of the stories. Um, Pull up some pictures along the way, and then show you some pictures that I created, and then we'll talk about some future content. So let's start off with the prologue. Billy Hopkins is a young boy who gets disciplined by his abusive father Stan for reading Creepshow, a horror comic. Not wanting his son to be exposed to the comic's content, Stan throws it in the garbage. As Billy sits upstairs, wishing that his father rots in hell, he hears a sound at the window. The source of the noise turns out to be the Creep, the host of the comic book, who beckons him to come closer and move the trash can. This is the picture of the Creep. That's that opening scene. It's very powerful, and you have the boy kind of have that sinister laugh, and he's like putting his hands together, like, "Yeah, bring it on! I'm gonna take out my father." Um, just a great opening to the movie, and then we go into Father's Day. Father's Day is Sylvia Grantham meets her nephew Richard and niece Cass, along with Cass's new husband Hank, which is played by Ed Harris, Hank Blaine, at the Grantham estate for the family's annual dinner on the third Sunday in June, which is Father's Day. They proceed to tell Hank about the family matriarch, Great Aunt Bedelia, and how it is an open secret in the family that she murdered her late father, the miserly and domineering Nathan Grantham, who had accumulated the family's fortune through bootlegging, fraud, extortion, and murder for hire. Many years earlier, Bedelia was rendered an unstable spinster, the result of a lifetime spent putting up with her father's incessant demands and emotional abuse, which got even worse after he suffered a stroke and she was made to nurse him full time. The torture culminated with Nathan orchestrating a fatal hunting accident which took the life of his daughter's fiance, Peter Yarborough, in order to keep her under his thumb. That Father's Day, Bedelia, driven into a murderous rage by Nathan's constant insults and his petulant demands for his cake. You keep hearing him say, "I want my cake. Where's my cake? I want my cake." Again, memorable line in the Creepshow movie, similar to "Thanks for the Ride, Lady," but we'll touch on that later. Bashed her overbearing father's head in with a marble ashtray, um, which is hidden throughout the other stories. It's crazy how a lot of these stories, how it's intertwined with the anthology, but you'll see the same objects appear. You'll see this, excuse me, you'll see the same phone appear in several of the stories. It's like that push button, multiple line phone. Um, Again, the ashtray is subtly hidden throughout. So we go to the present day. Bedelia arrives at Grantham Manor that evening. She stops by the family cemetery just outside the mansion to lay a flower at her father's grave. She drunkenly reminisces about the murder and reveals that Sylvia stages the killing as an accident in order to steal and distribute Nathan's fortune among the rest of the family. She accidentally spills her whiskey bottle in front of the headstone. Just then, Nathan's reanimated, putrefied, maggot-infested corpse emerges from the burial plot, still demanding the Father's Day cake he never got. He avenges himself on Bedelia, strangling her. He proceeds to systematically wipe out the rest of his family, telekinetically crushing Hank to death with a gravestone, then twisting Sylvia's neck. He also kills Mrs. Danvers, the Grantham's cook, possibly to cover his tracks. As a gruesome final joke, Nathan surprises Cass and Richard by presenting them with a Father's Day cake, Sylvia's severed head covered with frosting and lit candles. And here's a picture of Nathan. That's his corpse after he's reanimated, and then that scene about the birthday cake. There's the scene. While this ending is left ambiguous in the film, with Nathan gloating over a terrified Cass and Richard in freeze frame, the comic book based on the film has the creep giving a vague hint that Nathan's next act was to blow out their candles. Again, great filming, great editing when you have the comic book style intertwined with the events happening in the film. How the hues change to like a red or a blue. Again, this film came out in '82, but after watching it, it looks like something that came out that can. Again, these movies all hold up. I'm not talking about movies that just go away and look dated. Creepshow holds up. Creepshow is 41 years old, and it looks like it's only 4 years old. It's just again, well put together film, and that just goes back to the cast. It goes back to the cast, and it goes to the crew handling the film. So the next tale is called The Lonesome Death of Jordy Verrill. So Jordy Verrill, a comedic and dim-witted backwoods yokel played by Stephen King, watches as a meteorite crash lands on his farm. Observing the crash site, Jordy gets his fingers burned when he tries to touch the meteorite. In a fantasy sequence, Jordy imagines selling the meteorite to the local college's Department of Meteors, hoping that the sale would provide enough money to pay off a $200 bank loan. Taking precautions, he douses the meteorite with a bucket of water, causing it to crack open, spilling a glowing blue liquid. In another fantasy sequence, Jordy imagines the Department of Meteors refusing to purchase the now broken meteorite. Resolving to try and glue the halves together in the morning, Jordy nonchalantly dumps the liquid inside the meteor into the soil, into the hole that it made from landing, but not before the substance makes contact with the skin. And you see where he burns his fingers touching it in the beginning, and it kind of blisters. And then when it cracks open, he's picking up, he's like yelling, "Oh, I got meteor shit on me! I got meteor shit on me!" It's just a funny sequence. Again, Stephen King, great actor in his movies. Like he gives it his all in all the characters that he plays. As time passes, Jordy finds his fingers being overcome by what appears to be grass. He attempts to call the doctor, but he reconsiders doing so when he imagines another fantasy sequence that a doctor will chop off the afflicted fingers without anesthetic. Over time, the strange substance continues to grow all over Jordy's farm. Let me just pull up a pic of Jordy. Everything Jordy has touched, and even on Jordy's body, which causes him to itch furiously. Jordy panics as he discovers the increasing growth and tries to calm himself by pouring himself a bottle of vodka and mixing it with orange juice. Soon after, Jordy falls asleep in a drunken stupor, and this is, where he's drinking that mixture, and then he wakes up sometime later, believing the experience has to be a dream. But his hopes are dashed when he sees all that plant growth has managed to reach inside the house, as well as discovering in a mirror that he's now grown a green beard. He starts to draw a bath to relieve the itching, but he is visited by the ghost of his deceased father, who appears in his mirror and warns him against doing so by telling him that water is what the plants want. Grimly rationalizing that not getting in would only delay the inevitable, Jordy laments that he's a goner already. When the itching from the growth on his skin becomes unbearable, Jordy succumbs to the temptation and collapses into the bathwater. The next morning, Geordie's farm has been completely coated with dense layers of alien vegetation, with Geordie himself transformed into a human-shaped collection of plant matter. In despair, he reaches for a coach gun, which is... apologize, my dog. Again, she sees people walking by. She's got a bark. Emma, come here, chill. No one's gonna hurt. All right, back to the story. So Jordy grabs, it's like a 12 gauge shotgun. Prays to God that his luck will change, and this will cure what's going on, and for once God will answer his prayers. And blows the top of his head off, killing himself. Immediately afterwards, a TV weather forecast announces that moderate temperatures and heavy rains are predicted, and the implication being that this will accelerate the spread of the extraterrestrial plant growth to surrounding areas, and will continue to point out where the Earth may be terraformed into an entirely green planet. So, again, this is story 2, and there's still 3. I mean, there's still 3 more. Again, in this one, you had the cinematic shots, you had the comic book edited in scenes, the lighting. Again, everything was just shot incredible. So let's get to the next story, something to tide you over. Richard Vickers is a vicious and heartless millionaire whose spry jocularity belies his cold-blooded and murderous nature. He visits Harry Wentworth, which is played by Ted Danson. Richard played by Leslie Nielsen, the man with whom his wife Becky is having an affair. Richard mentions that he and Becky never shared an actual affection, but such is besides the issue. Richard's point of honor is always keeping what's his, a rule that he enforces no matter what. Rather than physically assaulting Harry, Richard plays a recording of Becky's voice, where she tearfully begs Harry to help her. Both men travel to Comfort Point, Richard's isolated beach house. Richard points out what appears to be a burial mound in the sand. When Harry promptly runs to it, Richard pulls a gun on him. He forces Harry to jump into the hole and begin burying himself. Eventually, Richard finishes burying Harry neck deep in the sand below the high tide line. Richard then sets up a closed-circuit TV camera and a VCR to record Harry. He also brings along a monitor displaying Becky, who is also buried up to her neck further down the beach, where the rising tide is already washing over her face. Richard does tell Harry that he and Becky have a chance of survival if they can hold their breath long enough for the sand to loosen once the seaweed covers them. Then they can break free and escape. With that, Richard abandons Harry and returns back to his beach house. He's sipping on a cocktail. Richard watches with great satisfaction as Harry and Becky slowly drown. Just before Harry is completely submerged by the advancing tide, he looks directly in the camera and vows revenge on Harry. Hours later, Richard returns to Harry's grave to collect the tape. He finds the ruined monitor, but no sign of Harry. Not disturbed, Richard writes this off as the body having been carried away by the current. Later that night, Richard hears voices calling his name, as a mysterious unseen presence easily bypasses Comfort Point's extensive security system. The culprits turn out to be Harry and Becky, the two lovers having returned as waterlogged, seaweed-covered revenants intent on revenge on their killer. Richard shoots them, but when the bullets have no effect, he barricades himself into his bedroom, only to find Becky and Harry already inside. The two victims taunt Richard, who laughs insanely. Sometime later, the undead lovers have buried Richard up to his neck on the beach. They have since disappeared together into the surf, leaving Richard's own seaweed-covered video camera to record his coming demise. As the approaching tide proceeds to drown him, the hysterical Richard screams that he can hold his breath. I can hold my breath for a long time. And, let's see, I think I have a picture of... Here's a picture of Richard when he's getting ambushed by both of them in his house after they've come back to life. Just a very, again, Every scene is captured well. The lighting, again, just the effects of that comic book style. It's really cool how they incorporate that into the telling of the story, into the into the background and forefront of this movie. And now we get on to the fourth story, and this one's called The Crate. Mike Latimer, a janitor at Horlicks University, drops a quarter he was flipping, which rolls behind a grate underneath a basement staircase. While attempting to retrieve the coin, he comes across a wooden storage crate marked "Shipped to Horlicks University via Julie Carpenter, Arctic Expedition, June 19th, 1834." It was hidden underneath the staircase. He calls Professor Dexter Stanley to notify him of the discovery, drawing Dexter away from a faculty social gathering. Also at the gathering are Dexter's best friends, the mild-mannered Professor Henry Northrop, played by Hal Halbrook, and Henry's perpetually drunk, obnoxious, and emotionally abusive wife, Wilma, who goes by Billy, played by Adrienne Barbeau, who has a penchant for embarrassing herself, belittling her husband, and annoying or insulting everybody she meets. Henry regularly fantasizes about killing his horrific wife, but is far too timid to actually go through with it. And you can see where she's like putting him down and saying, "You're such a kid," and he pulls out a gun and he goes, "Wilma," and she goes, "What?" And boom, like he shoots her, and then everyone's like applauding and saying, "Good shot, bullseye." It was just, sarcasm, and in his mind he just, he wishes he could, because he just can't take the abuse any longer. So Stanley meets Mike at Amberson Hall, where the former discovers the crate. Both men move the crate into a nearby biology lab, where they tirelessly work to get it open. In the process, Mike sticks his hand inside the crate and begins yelling in pain. And with that, I think this is the image. Nope, that's not the image. Oh, great. That image is corrupted. I apologize. So we'll just bring it back to here. Go figure. Restream won't support that image. But anyways, Mike sticks his hand inside the crate and begins yelling in pain. The crate opens to reveal its contents: a shaggy ape-like creature with sharp fangs, which is called Fluffy within the movie. Despite its diminutive size, the creature promptly kills and devours Mike whole, leaving behind only his mangled boot. Fleeing the lab, Dexter bumps into graduate student Charlie Garrison, to whom he frantically relays what happened. While skeptical, Charlie agrees to investigate the professor's claim. The two find the lab covered in blood with no sign of the creature or its crate. They discover that the crate has been moved back under the stairs, where they also discover Mike's boot. Wanting to measure the bite marks of the boot, Charlie examines the crate closer. The creature pounces on Charlie and kills him, prompting Dexter to escape and take the boot with him. Traumatized and hysterical, Dexter runs to Henry's house after Billy leaves for the evening. He tells Henry everything that's happened since the crate was discovered and insists that the monster must be disposed of somehow. Seeing the supposed creature as an ideal way to rid himself of his wife, Henry appears to believe Dexter's story. To this end, Henry spikes Dexter's drink with sleeping pills and writes a note stating that Dexter had supposedly assaulted a female student. That brings Billy rushing to Amberson Hall, where Henry has since cleaned up the bloody lab from the mess that the monster created from murdering these two individuals. When Billy arrives, Henry lures her under the basement stairs by saying that the girl that the professor had done something to was curled up in a ball underneath the steps, and maybe you could talk her out. You got a way of doing that. You're good at it. So he lures her to the basement steps, trying to awaken the creature. As Billy rants at Henry for dragging her out there in the middle of the night and assaulting her, the beast awakens and proceeds to consume her. The next morning, Henry tells Dexter that he secured the beast inside its crate and then dumped the crate into a nearby quarry, watching as it sank to the bottom. He convinces Dexter that the creature has drowned, and both men are agreed to let the authorities handle the disappearances. Unknown to Henry and Dexter, the beast is still shown to be alive and is last seen tearing the submerged crate apart, and looks like it's swimming towards the top of the surface. Again, Fluffy the monster, very, very cool. Picture maybe like a rabid, sharp-toothed Harry and the Hendersons. That's kind of what I compare it to on that level. But yeah, again, another episode where we have the fantastic lighting, the amazing camera shots, and the dialogue between all involved. Um, Again, just keeps this movie just churning along. It's just again a great film, a great film. And then it brings us to the last story of the anthology before we get to the epilogue with Billy and his father. This one's called "They're Creeping Up on You," and this one, when I say creeping up on you, and this story's creepy, and what happens, it makes you look down, makes you check yourself, makes you brush off, makes you want to go and clean your house from top to bottom. Um, and I don't care about bugs. I just don't like looking at I don't like looking at roaches. I don't like, never see one up close, and I hope that I never have to see one up close. I mean, other than going to like the zoo and whatnot, you get to see the Madagascar hissing ones, but I don't want to see one in a house. I don't want to see one anywhere. It's like, screw that. Not messing with bugs. So they're creeping up on you. Upson Pratt is a ruthlessly cruel business mogul who suffers from mysophobia, which has rendered him living in a hermetically sealed penthouse apartment outfitted with electric locks and surveillance cameras. His apparent contacts with the outside world are through the telephone and are primarily made to put upon employees. His character seemingly influenced by Howard Hughes. One stormy night, Pratt receives a call from George Gendron, one of his subordinates, about the fact that his company, Pratt International, has recently instigated a corporate takeover of the Pacific Aerodyne Company. Gendron also informs Mr. Pratt that the takeover caused a business rival, Norman Kastenmeier, to commit suicide, much to Pratt's delight. During the call, Pratt slowly begins finding cockroaches around his apartment. Being a fanatical insect hater, Pratt arms himself with bug spray in an attempt to combat the insects. Before long, someone manages to get through on Pratt's private line. The call turns out to be Norman Kastenmeier's widow, Lenore, who tearfully recalls her husband's final moments and curses Pratt for causing his death. After finding pieces of cockroaches in his food processor, which was, again, just to look, I don't even, what he was eating, just, blah, like, well, anyways. Pratt receives a call from his building superintendent, Carl Reynolds, currently on vacation in Orlando with his family. Despite his vacation, Pratt forces Reynolds to send the building's handyman, Mr. White, to call an exterminator under the threat of firing him. Soon after, Pratt discovers more cockroaches in a box of cereal, trying and failing to crush any that he can. Mr. White soon arrives outside Pratt's door and tells him that he is calling a fumigation service. He'll try to get one there by, I think he said, by 11:30. A rolling blackout then heads towards the building. During the blackout, cockroaches numbering in the hundreds of thousands begin pouring out of every nook and cranny in Pratt's apartment. I mean, they're coming out the faucet, they're coming from the ceiling, they're coming through the phone lines. It's just, again, makes me want to throw up. As the insects overwhelm Pratt, he activates the emergency power and attempts to call the police for assistance. The police are unfortunately unable to be of any help because of the blackout. Nor is Mr. White, who is stuck in the elevator. At his wit's end, Pratt locks himself inside a climate-controlled panic room to escape the growing swarm of cockroaches. He gets another call from Lenore, who continues to curse at him. It's during this call that Pratt finds his bed covers wriggling, and when he removes them, discovers that the cockroaches have already invaded the panic room. With no way for Pratt to escape, the cockroaches swarm at him, which induces a heart attack. When electricity returns to the building, the apartment is utterly devoid of any cockroaches. Looks totally just not disturbed, nothing out of place. And then we see Pratt's corpse inside the panic room as Mr. White is calling in to report. If you see this picture of when I tell you how many cockroaches were in there, blah, like hell no. And I was reading that when they filmed this, they used live cockroaches, but there was so many that when they filmed the scene, they used like nuts and raisins to like simulate cockroaches. Like, oh. And again, this 41 years old, and this scene still makes me itch and look and double check, and it's probably one of the most horrifying scenes in any movie, and there's no blood involved until we see the cockroaches start coming out of his body. So when Mr. White gets no answers from Mr. Pratt, he's like, he jokingly makes a comment, "What's the matter, Mr. Pratt? Bugs got your tongue?" And then Pratt's body soon begins to contort as cockroaches burst out of his mouth and chest, re-enveloping the panic room as seen here. Mr. White continues to call Pratt's names to get a response, then calls him a bastard when he gets no answer. And again, you see it's such a great practical effect. They used like a dummy prosthetic that made to look like Mr. Pratt. And then when they pushed those roaches out from his head and they came out of his mouth, that was a lose it type moment. And not many movies get me like this, but this movie just, if anything made me sick, it's this movie, it's this scene, it's this story. What do you guys think? This, have you guys seen Creepshow, and do you know this part that I'm talking about? Let me know. So the next morning, two garbage collectors, as seen right here, find the Creepshow comic book on the curb. They look at the ads in the book for X-ray specs and a bodybuilding course. They also see the advertisement for the voodoo doll that was briefly glimpsed earlier in the film, but joke that the order form has already been redeemed. Inside the Hopkins house, Stan, the father, is complaining that to his wife that he's suffering from a stiff neck, figuring it must have strained it, or maybe he slept on it wrong. Upstairs, Billy is revealed to have sent away for the voodoo doll and has decorated with a piece of his father's clothing and some of his hair. Stan clutches his neck, his throat in pain, again showing that amazing comic book background and the red glow of the lights. It's just beautiful cinema. So he clutches his throat in pain as Billy is repeatedly and gleefully jabbing the voodoo doll with a pin, finally getting revenge on his father for his abuse. The images of Billy jabbing the doll becomes the cover of the next issue of Creepshow. The creep is seen holding the same comic book, laughing sinisterly as the candle goes out. Again, this movie is up there. It's in one of the top movies I've ever seen horror wise in my life. it may not be in everyone's top because maybe they weren't around to see it. Maybe they haven't seen it. Maybe it's not their kind of horror. Maybe they're not. Maybe you don't like anthologies, but I love anthologies, and we're gonna have some of the final days of DadPooLoWeen. There's gonna be some anthologies in there, so I hope that you. I hope that you tune in. I hope that you hit the like button on this video. That you're sharing it out. That when you're going down to the comment section, that you're hitting that notification bell. Because even though DadPooLoWeen is ending in a few days, we still got more. We got more to talk about. But let's talk about the sequels to Creepshow. There was a Creepshow 2 that came out in 1987. But it only has 3 stories based on budget constraints. And they were the Indian, there was the Raft, which was like this lake where these kids went to, and there was like this oily blackish like substance on the water that kind of melted and devoured your body. And then there was the hitchhiker, the thanks for the ride lady, where the lady is driving home, and she accidentally hits somebody, and that person comes back to life to traumatize her. And throughout the whole episode, you hear, "Thanks for the ride, lady. Thanks for the ride." Like, that's just an epic line, along with, "I still want my cake. Where's my cake?" From the first one. Then there was a Creepshow 3 that came out direct to video in 2007, and I'm just not going to talk about it. It's Creepshow only by name. It's totally different directors, producers. There was no involvement of Stephen King, no involvement from George Romero. Nobody from the production team from the first 2 films had anything to do with it. I'm not going to tell you not to watch it, because it is an anthology. It would be all right if it wasn't called Creepshow. If it had if it didn't have the name Creepshow, I don't think I'd have a big deal with it. And then there was the Greg Nicotero Creepshow series that came out in 2019. I believe they're on their 3rd or 4th season now. Just came out. Definitely recommend that. Those are some fascinating visual stories. There's a lot of great actors that appear in the series. I think Tobin Bell shows up in one of them. Adrienne Barbeau comes back, but she plays a different role. But yeah, definitely check it out. It's on Shudder, so you can check it out there. I believe it's on AMC Plus as well, but I think Shudder's included with that. So you can check out that series. I highly recommend it. But yeah, I want to know what you guys think. Have you seen either Creepshow or have you seen the TV series? Is it one of your favorite movies to watch? Whether it's during October or if it happens to show up on TV at a random time during the year, or if you just happen to pop it on your streaming service or one of your platforms and you just check it out. What do you guys think of Creepshow? I want to know. Let me show you a few images that I created for this movie review of DadPooL within Creepshow. So we have this one here that really looks like a really good comic book cover. You got me on the cover with a knife, and then you got some creepy creatures in the back, which kind of resemble the Creeper and maybe the people from the first movie that were buried and came back to attack Leslie Nielsen's character. I think that's a very cool one. You have this one here where I'm reading the Creepshow book, and there's a lot of different characters in the back. Like, Bing AI, I'm telling you, if you guys want to try something, let me know. Bing AI, you can create so much, and it's just a nice personal touch, creative touch to whatever you're doing, whatever content you're doing. Um, you just type in, try to be as descriptive as you can, not too wordy, but be descriptive, and it'll create just about anything. We have this one here where I'm sitting at the movie theaters watching Creepshow. There's, I got some popcorn, and there's a Creepshow posters in the back. That's really cool. And then there's this one here, right here. That's kind of cool. That's the avatar that I have. So it's like another like comic book type of cover with a lot of different characters in the back, with me as like the main. And I just love how they captured the Creepshow font. It looks just like the Creepshow, very similar to the Creepshow font they use for the actual poster. And this is the actual movie poster right here. So yeah, speaking of pictures and stuff, I'm counting on you guys to help me out. I got a poll up on YouTube. We're gonna be changing my logo, and I have 3 options that I want you guys to vote on and choose from, and ultimately I'll use it starting January 1st. So here's one where it's just DadPooL's discussion, just a DadPooL head with like headphones and some mics. And I have this one, which I really love. DadPooL's discussions on kind of like a podcast setup with the computer, with that yellow and blue, or yellow and red. Wow, trust me, I'm not color. I might be blind in my left eye, but I'm not colorblind. Sorry. Red and yellow background. And then here's this one. It's kind of like a podcast setup as well. Like you have like the mic stand, the camera stands, and whatnot, and with the black and red kind of motif of DadPooL. So I have those 3 options up on a poll on YouTube. If you stop by the community section on my YouTube channel, you can vote on those. Link is in the description. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you check out the other links as well. You have my TikTok in there. You got my Twitch, the merch store, which a lot of the stuff will be available for merch within the next few weeks, just getting them worked out so they can become a merchable file. You have my podcast in there, which I know I took a break from that. I'm going to be resuming that, getting those stories back out there. I have 6 right now. I still have to finish the trilogy of the Raven's Reckoning. There's still 2 more stories to put out for that. So if you can, follow me on that, listen to the 6 episodes that are on the Spotify podcast now, I'd appreciate it. And then just drop a follow on Twitter or X. That's the best way to get a hold of me, best way to message me, best way to get in touch. Because starting in November, and I was going to originally do it on Friday, November 3rd. Next Friday, I was going to start putting out these videos, but since next Friday I have to have laser treatment on my right eye to try to save that, because I just don't understand. Like, anyways, so they're trying to save my right eye's vision, so I have to have laser treatment. So I'm going to have a patch on my right eye, and with my left eye, you can't really see out of it. I'm not going to be able to see anything, so I'm not going to be able to put a video out, and I have to keep that patch on for at least overnight until the next day. So I'll probably record the videos on Saturday. I either put it out Saturday nights or Sunday nights. It all depends on how I feel post laser surgery. Whether I can record that Saturday and put it out Saturday night, I definitely will. If not, I'll have it ready for you every Sunday in November. I'll have another DadPooL's Horror Then and Now, where I'll be comparing and contrasting original horror movies to the remakes. So the first one is going to be Hellraiser 87 versus Hellraiser 2022. And if you want to come on the show to discuss this or any other franchise battles with remakes and originals, hit me up on Twitter. Send me a message. Comment on the video on this video here. I'll definitely get in touch with you and we can coordinate that. If you want to get on and come on with me during the month of December, I'll be doing 25 Days of Horror, where I'll be reviewing Christmas slashers, some dark themed Christmas movies, independent and mainstream. Can't wait for that. So if you are a director out there and you have a Christmas slasher, reach out to me. I'll get you on the show and we can talk about your film. And then future series that I have coming out is, I haven't titled it yet, but it's in the works, where I'll be talking about a franchise's sequel movie and how it affected the original, like the first one, whether it advanced the series or if it just went back in decline, how it relates, did it continue the story. I'll be talking about that. Then I'm also doing a villain hero, top 50 villains and heroes of any film. That's just a film in general. I believe the 50th is Russell Crowe's character from Gladiator, and then Denzel Washington from Training Day, his character. So, Alonzo. So look for that. I'm getting that ready, and then also I want to do 100 top 100 film of the AFI, and I'm just trying to get that coordinated as well. But like I said, other things kind of interrupted that. I have a lot of it written already for Ben-Hur, which is 100 all the way down to number 1. So if there's anything that you want to talk about, and feel free to reach out. Like I said, reach out and we'll get on the show. We'll debate. We'll have a great conversation. It'll be a fun time. But for now, I think that's going to do it for day 28 of DadPooLoWeen. Creepshow. Link to the IMDb is in the the description. Sorry. So if you want to check that out further. But yeah, I'd love to see your comments on this. I'd love to see what you thought of Creepshow. Again, is it a first time? Is this going to be a first time watch if you decide to watch it? Or is it something you've seen several times? What's your take on the series as a whole? And have you watched the TV series on Shudder, directed by Greg Nicotero? Let me know. So just a couple things that I always ask of you before I get up out of here. Just one, watch a movie. So again, this could be Creepshow. You could use it to watch Creepshow, or you can utilize any of there's free streamers, like I'm telling you, Pluto TV. I'm going to get them sponsored because I can't stop talking about Pluto TV. There's so much on there. That's my go-to when I'm not watching AMC. I'm watching Pluto TV because not only for the classic TV, for the comedy, for the sci-fi, but the movie stations they have. There's a thriller station. There's a 24/7 horror channel. You have spotlight channels. You have icon channels. You have channels that feature, like right now, The Godfather is playing the whole entire series. So that's been enjoyable to watch. And yeah, it has commercials, but big deal, 20-second commercials. It's a free streaming service. You're getting the unedited. You're not getting a chopped up movie that you would watch on, say, AMC or something. It's similar to like IFC. You're going to get the movie as it's intended to be. There's a throwback channel. And if you like Asylum movies like me, yeah, there's a 24/7 Asylum channel with all the Asylum favorites. And there's a Godzilla channel. I mean, 24/7. That's what sold me. When that Godzilla channel came out over the summer, that kind of really attracted me to Pluto, because I always dismissed Pluto as like it didn't really have much on it. But when they added that Godzilla, it kind of reeled me in, and now I'm hooked for life. there's Freevee, which is very similar to Pluto, similar platform. Tons of free stuff, and then of course there's Tubi. Who doesn't love Tubi? They have your Tubi originals. You have a catalog full of horror and comedy and drama, documentaries. I'm a documentary fan. Speaking of documentaries, there's a Pluto 24/7 documentary channel as well. So, like I said, there's a lot of content for you to consume and go watch a movie. And then finally, just, hug your loved ones. So, again, I want to thank everyone for their patience with me recently. I want to thank everyone for reaching out to check on me, to make sure that I'm doing well, both mentally and physically. I appreciate you all. It's I have no words, because you guys are amazing. So thank you again for everything. So until the next video, until tomorrow night, this is DadPooL. Have a great night. I love you.